Introduction. Now that COVID seems largely behind us and we anticipate the next global catastrophe, it has become necessary to reflect upon everything that happened during those few very strange years and the information that has come out since. We saw lockdowns around the world lasting well over a year in some places. Many people wore masks religiously despite sound science early on that surgical masks would not prove effective against it. Some families found themselves torn apart because some members questioned things, whereas others unquestioningly went along with everything. We witnessed the mainstream media and people in power politicize an extremely effective human drug and make the population think it is only a horse dewormer. Vaccine mandates popped up around the world, challenging our right to bodily autonomy, forcing as many of us as possible to take an experimental emergency use authorized vaccine, and even leading many pro-choice supporters to call for repercussions for those who chose to forego vaccination. People then saw segments sponsored by Pfizer all over mainstream media about the effectiveness of and need to take the vaccine despite breakthrough cases popping up everywhere within months of the vaccine rollout. The vaccine manufacturers made record profits. COVID and all the measures to curb it became a religion for many people, and the pious have surely felt a little empty now that it has fallen into the backdrop. Perhaps now we can spend a little time reflecting upon those few peculiar years if we did find ourselves terrorized and even traumatized by some of the things that occurred during that time. If we gave in to all of the propaganda and militantly enforced the measures, seeing it as our duty to make sure everyone complies, it can benefit us to reflect upon where we were deceived and with whom we should make amends. I will say that I was never one of those people. My COVID story likely differs greatly from most because I always remained skeptical of everything going on. Between late 2020 and early 2023, I traveled around 13 countries, interested in seeing some places that weren't as hysterical, and spent at least a month in 6 of them. I take George Carlin's comments seriously when he says, whenever there's bipartisan consensus in DC, you know you have an extra big fucking coming your way. The way I saw it was, if both parties, big business, and the majority of Americans are all going along with something, you know some extra big bullshit is going on. Carlin also said that the US's main export is that good old grade A American bullshit. What exactly that bullshit was, I didn't know, but there had to be a lot there. This is the US we're talking about. These are the same people who twice elected George W. Bush, bought the whole WMD thing, got duped by Obama, and elected Donald Trump, then a demented guy, and then Trump again. Democrats refused to acknowledge Biden's manifest cognitive decline in 2020, believed the media that gaslit them into thinking he was just fine, and then bought the whole 2024 primary bullshit that the DNC pulled on them. This is an uncritical, hyper-conformist, anti-intellectual people we're talking about here. Carlin was also pretty spot on when he said, governments don't want a population capable of critical thinking, they want obedient workers. People just smart enough to run the machines and just dumb enough to passively accept their situations. Even earlier, Will Rogers surely stated for a reason that anytime you find yourself on the side of the majority, it's time to pause and reflect. Regardless of the similarities or differences between my COVID story and everyone else's, we all have one, as it was an unprecedented event affecting the entire world simultaneously, terrorizing us and driving wedges ever deeper in the society, as everything got politicized and was presented from a left-right perspective. My story might resonate with those who had reservations about some of the extreme policies and measures put in place but followed along because the powerful truly made their lives unnecessarily difficult, if not impossible. My sympathy goes out to them more than anything. It is because I recognize how fearful people are in general that I do not hold anything against them, even those who discriminated against others for being unvaccinated and those who uncritically accepted everything occurring. However, I do have a slight grievance with people who felt they had license to discriminate against those who questioned things and those who chose not to get the vaccine for one of a number of very legitimate reasons. Conversely, I also saw a lot of people who discriminated against the vaccinated and those who were very fearful, which is equally wrong. Perhaps we can now take some time to make amends with those with whom we have lost touch due to issues that came about during that time. At no point and in no way do I belittle anyone for being fearful at any point. We were all dealing with a truly unprecedented event, and no one can blame anyone for being afraid. My sympathy goes out to those who were furloughed for long periods of time or even laid off or put out of business, those who faced issues for questioning the official narrative or choosing not to take the vaccine until enough time had passed to see any long-term consequences. I am not anti-vaccine and was never opposed to anyone developing one for COVID. However, I took issue with how quickly the manufacturers rolled them out and how people in power effectively coerced everyone, not just in the US but around the world, into taking it. As Americans, we really all should take serious issue with the manner in which people were, and still are, treated for questioning the official narrative, especially since so much information contradicting so many aspects of the official narrative and vaccine efficacy has come out in congressional and EU hearings since 2022. We need a collective grievance, as those in power victimized all of us during COVID to some extent. So instead of being victims fighting victims, why don't we come together and become victims fighting the victimizers? Does no one take issue with the fact that corporations and individuals profited enormously off of the vaccine that the government was attempting to force everyone to take? I actually wrote the essays in part 3 of this book during the time of COVID. The first one, Hindsight in 2020, was approved for publication with the Fair Observer in June 2020, as I had written it in May of that year. Alas, I forgot about publishing it once I got embroiled in a new relationship, but at least it is out there now, as it remains as relevant now as when I wrote it then, providing context for the economic crisis brought about by COVID, which started in March 2020 with the stock market crash and lasted well into 2022, despite the market's unprecedented rebound in summer 2020. I will not provide every detail of my time and travels during COVID, but mention aspects that seem particularly important that happened during that time and certain things that have come full circle. The very beginning of COVID made a few things come full circle for me, including how it started in the first week of January 2020, as it did for those who knew about it before it went mainstream. For me, it came in the form of a BBC breaking news notification the first week of January, stating that doctors in Wuhan, China had identified an unknown virus